Welcome to this explainer. We often think of idleness, just having absolutely nothing to do, as a luxury, right? Like a much needed break from the daily grind. But what if I told you that having zero purpose for your time isn't a luxury at all? Actually, according to classical Jewish texts and modern commentaries, it's viewed as a severe psychological and spiritual danger. So today, we're going to summarize and really break down this idea. We'll start with a core ancient teaching from the Mishnah, and then we're going to see how it ripples out into literally every aspect of our lives. We're talking our internal psychology, our marriages, parenting, the workplace, and even public policy. And by the end, we're going to build a concrete personal action plan to turn that empty time into real growth.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the danger of idleness. Then, man versus himself. After that, relationships in the test of time, followed by community and policy. Then we'll discuss finding time for growth, and finally, we'll lay out that personal action plan.
All right, Section 1, the danger of idleness. Rabbi Kina's Mishnah.
So Pirkei Avot gives us this really stark warning. It says, "He who wakes at night, walks alone, and turns his heart to idleness forfeits his life." I mean, it sounds incredibly intense, right? Forfeits his life? But the classical commentator Rabbeinu Yonah offers this brilliant insight here. He explains that the night is actually this highly desirable, quiet time. You aren't distracted by work and you don't hear the noise of other people. So having that premium, quiet time and actively choosing to waste it by emptying your mind of purpose, that is seen as a tragic waste of a truly precious resource. To really grasp this, we need to clarify exactly what we mean by idleness. The scholar Avigdor Shannon points out a crucially important linguistic distinction in Hebrew. We are talking about batala, which is chosen idleness, laziness, or intentionally wasting your time. We are absolutely not talking about avta, which translates to forced, involuntary unemployment. Look, if someone loses their job and is desperately looking for work, that is a huge misfortune. But batala? That's the destructive, conscious choice to just have dead time. Moving into Section 2, man versus himself, psychology and spirit. Let's look at what actually happens in the mind and the spirit when we just try to kill time. The psychological commentary on this Mishnah reveals a pretty fundamental law of human nature. There is simply no inner vacuum. The human mind cannot remain static. It's like if you aren't actively pushing for upward growth, you are absolutely guaranteeing downward decay. The sources point out that aimless wandering, whether that's literal or metaphorical, makes you incredibly vulnerable. Criminal elements and negative societal influences, they actively prey on individuals who lack direction. When you don't have a goal, you kind of become a magnet for trouble, mostly because you're just looking to fill that internal void with whatever comes along first. Now, what's really interesting about this is how the great thinker Rabbi Nachman of Breslov completely reframes it. Yes, aimless wandering leading to decay is a dangerous psychological void. However, wandering alone at night and emptying your heart doesn't have to be a negative thing. If you do it intentionally, specifically to speak to your creator, which is a practice known as hitboderut or spiritual solitude, you actually transform that empty void into the ultimate connection. So it's all about the intention behind the solitude. Which brings us to Section 3, relationships and education in the test of time. How does this internal battle actually show up after a really long, hard day? The commentary B'nai Binyamin paints this incredibly vivid picture of two very different approaches to coming home. The first is the complaining, exhausted spouse. We've all seen this, right? They walk through the door and immediately just vent about all the negative things that happened at work, which effectively drags a dark cloud right into the home. Over time, that completely ruins their spouse's perception of them. Now contrast that with the intentional present spouse. Even if they are completely exhausted, they proactively enter the home with a warm greeting. They actually listen to their partner and they transition deliberately into family time or study. They don't just collapse into idleness. And this describes such a highly relatable scenario. B'nai Binyamin highlights what he calls the collision of imaginations. Picture this. A husband is riding the bus home, utterly exhausted, and he's fantasizing that his wife is waiting with a cold drink and a comfortable chair so he can just do nothing. Meanwhile, his wife has been chasing kids around all day. She's equally exhausted, and she's fantasizing that the second her husband walks in, he'll take over the parenting so she can finally rest. Both of them are dreaming of idleness. When those two fantasies collide, it's a total recipe for resentment. The solution isn't to fight over who gets to do nothing, but to intentionally plan how to support each other without falling into that aimless void. Let's zoom out a bit for Section 4, community, employment, and public policy. What happens when unchecked idleness infects a whole community? Well, Avigdor Shannon points out that idleness has this massive ripple effect across different spheres of society. In the community sphere, it leads straight to street culture, crime, and substance abuse. In the work sphere, forced idleness, avtala, leads to depression and lost skills. Because of this, when it comes to public policy, a healthy state cannot just hand out welfare checks and leave people with absolutely nothing to do. The policy solution has to heavily favor proactive job creation, vocational training, and robust community programs. Leaving people in a state of social stagnation is, exactly as the Mishnah warned, a literal danger to life itself. Okay, Section 5, Time for Growth. Practical advice. How do we take these ancient philosophies and actually apply them practically? In a series of lectures, Rabbi Shimon Schreitzer frames idleness not just as a bad habit, but as a terrible internal trait. He explains it like this: human beings have a soul that desperately wants to give, and a body that naturally wants to take. When you choose idleness, your body is selfishly taking pleasure from the world without giving a single thing back. So recognizing idleness as an active flaw, rather than just some passive state of resting, is really the very first step to conquering it.
And this brilliantly illustrates what a structured alternative looks like, one that leaves no empty gaps in your day. You have your morning commute, which, can be filled with an audiobook or a podcast. Then you move into productive work. After that is that intentional return home we talked about. And get this, even your leisure time should be purposeful. And finally, measured sleep. The whole goal here is to just eliminate those random windows where you have absolutely no idea what you're supposed to be doing.
This brings us to a really powerful rule formulated by Rabbi Ben Zion Abishol. All 24 hours of the day must be actively assigned. Think about it. You are either eating to fuel your body, sleeping to recharge, praying, learning, or working. If you leave even a single 1-hour window totally unassigned, you are leaving the front door wide open to negative influences. All right, our final section, Section 6, Personal Action Plan. Let's build your blueprint for daily life. So the crucial point is that we can boil this whole thing down to 4 actionable steps. Step 1, define the exact rest you need. As the sources point out, if your body only needs 6 hours of sleep to function well, but you sleep for 8, you are actively wasting 2 hours of your life. Step 2, pre-plan your free time. Do not wait until you have 2 free hours to decide what to do, because you'll just end up scrolling on your phone. Step 3, turn your commutes and waiting times into active learning. And step 4, make that positive, highly intentional transition the second you walk through the front door at home. I want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on. Tomorrow evening, when you inevitably find yourself with 2 free hours, what will you choose to do with them? Are you going to let that time slip into an aimless void, or will you actively plan to use it for growth, connection, and purpose? The choice is entirely yours. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this helps you reclaim your time.